So today, lads, we're going to be talking about Becky Hammon, who seems to be losing her damn mind. Becky Hammon and the Aces. There's a complete lack of professionalism and a complete lack of focus. I don't know how you step on a court with 20,000 people in the stands and perform like that. That's crazy. The team's bad. The team is bad. Like, we can call a spade a spade. The team is bad. And it's fine to admit that. It's fine to admit that your team is just bad. And I understand if you're Becky Hammon as a coach, you're going to get angry because your team does employ AJ Wilson. You would assume that when your team employs AJ Wilson, you're going to be cooking. When your team employs AJ Wilson, you're going to have a chance to win any game, any given game. And AJ Wilson was fantastic today. Like, the Fever can beat them. The Fever can beat them. So at the end of the day, it's one of those things where anything can happen with the Aces. But, like, I don't see them doing much. And Becky Hammon does not seem to be happy in any way.
The headlines were brutal, and the game was even worse. The Las Vegas Aces, once the pride of the WNBA, walked off the court stunned, embarrassed, and visibly shaken after a devastating loss to the Indiana Fever. But no one looked more furious than their head coach, Becky Hammon. And this time, it wasn't just about missed shots or lazy defense. It was about effort. It was about attitude. And it was about a team that, on that night, looked like it had completely lost its identity. From the opening tip, the Aces looked flat, disconnected, like a group of players waiting for someone else to take the lead. Meanwhile, the Fever came out with fire, fast, focused, and fearless, led by a wave of young players who were clearly hungry to prove something, and prove it they did. The Fever didn't just win, they dominated, and in the process, they exposed every flaw the Aces had tried to hide all season. Becky Hammon sat on the bench watching it unfold. A coach known for her intensity, her sharp eye, and her no-nonsense leadership, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Sloppy passes, missed rotations, no communication, no accountability, and worst of all, no fight. The final score didn't just reflect a bad night. It screamed a team in crisis. After the game, reporters pressed Hammon for answers, and she didn't hold back. Her voice was sharp, her tone serious. She called out her team for what it was, unprofessional and unfocused. She questioned their desire to win. She questioned their preparation, and she made it crystal clear. Something had to change. There was a complete lack of professionalism, she said. A complete lack of focus. I don't know how you step onto a court in front of 20,000 people and play like that. Those weren't just throwaway comments. That was a coach drawing a line in the sand. It wasn't just one or two players either. Sure, AJ Wilson showed up. She always does. But the rest of the team, it was a no-show. One player made more than 2 field goals the entire game. One. For a team that once looked like a dynasty in the making, this was nothing short of a meltdown. Jackie Young, a rising star who's had some electric moments, admitted it. We just have to come out better. But that kind of comment doesn't cut it anymore. Not when the team is 8-9, not when the team has lost games to opponents they should have steamrolled, and not when the locker room is beginning to feel like a pressure cooker. Becky Hammon's frustration wasn't just about effort. It was about culture. The Aces were built to be more than just a group of talented individuals. They were supposed to be a unit, a team that could weather the storm, push through adversity, and hold each other accountable. But what we saw that night was a team that broke apart the moment things got hard. They were shooting layups. We got outworked. They just wanted it more, Hammon continued. We had 1 good quarter, 3 quarters of trash. That level of honesty is rare in pro sports. Most coaches would dodge, deflect, and protect their players. Not Hammon, not anymore. And the crazy part? The referees were actually giving the Aces a lot of leeway that night. It wasn't even a game where the officiating could be blamed. It was simply effort, heart. And the Fever brought it while the Aces left theirs in the locker room. Now, some fans are starting to wonder if this Aces team is even capable of turning things around. Sure, injuries have played a part. Chelsea Gray hasn't looked like herself. But at some point, that can't be the excuse. The expectations are too high, the talent is too real, and the gap between potential and performance is growing wider by the week. That's where things get dangerous. Because once a team starts believing it can flip the switch whenever it wants, it rarely does. Once bad habits set in, they're hard to break. And judging by Hammon's comments, she knows exactly how close this team is to hitting rock bottom. When asked about the season so far, Hammon didn't sugarcoat a thing. We would have won 5 or 6 more games if we just played harder, she said. Think about that. 5 or 6 wins, just sitting there, waiting to be claimed, if the team had simply worked harder. That kind of statement should send chills down every player's spine, because it means the losses weren't about matchups or tactics. They were about effort, something every player controls. If you're Becky Hammon, how do you even begin to fix this? Because this isn't just about a single bad game, this is about a pattern. A stretch of games where the Aces have looked beatable, confused, and frankly uninspired. They've lost to teams that were missing key players. They've gotten blown out by squads they were favored to dominate. They've even found ways to collapse in games they were winning comfortably. And all of that points to a deeper problem, one that coaching alone may not solve. Take the loss to the Dallas Wings, for example. The Aces barely scraped by in a game where they were down by double digits with just minutes remaining. That win looked more like a fluke than a sign of growth. They weren't in control. They weren't playing with confidence. And the same issues, poor rotations, lack of hustle, lazy shot selection, were all present. Becky Hammon is watching all of this unfold from the sidelines, and you can see the frustration building. Every timeout is more animated, every press conference more blunt. She's trying to light a fire under this team, but the flame keeps fizzling out the moment the game begins. There's no doubt that A'ja Wilson is doing her part. Game after game, she continues to show up, dominate, and lead. But even she can't do it alone. Basketball is a team sport, and one player carrying the load simply isn't sustainable, especially when the rest of the roster isn't rising to the occasion. And let's be honest, this isn't just about individual stats. This is about leadership, about who's going to step up and hold their teammates accountable. Because based on what we're seeing on the court, there's a serious leadership vacuum, and it's costing the Aces games. Chelsea Gray, still trying to find her rhythm after returning from injury, hasn't been the steady floor general the team needs. Jackie Young, while explosive at times, has been inconsistent. And the role players, the ones who are supposed to provide energy, defense, and smart decision-making, have mostly gone quiet. What makes all of this harder to swallow is the fact that this Aces team was supposed to be a championship contender. They had the pieces, the chemistry, the coach, and now they're hovering below .500, trying to figure out what went wrong. And it's not just the losses, it's how they're losing. Blowouts, lack of urgency, getting outworked by teams with less talent. That's what makes this stretch so alarming, because it's not like they're just barely losing in close games. They're getting dominated. They're getting run off the court, and their body language is telling us everything we need to know. Becky Hammon said it best, "You have to come with your engine started. I never know which team I'm going to get on any given night." That level of unpredictability isn't just frustrating, it's dangerous. Because once a team starts to believe they can coast, that they can flip the switch whenever they want, they usually end up watching the playoffs from home. And make no mistake, that's a real possibility right now. The Aces have already lost games they absolutely should have won. They got steamrolled by the Valkyries. They lost to the Mystics, who were missing key players. They needed a miracle to beat the Wings. They even dropped a game to the Sparks, one of the least consistent teams in the league. This isn't a tough schedule. These are winnable games that are slipping through the cracks. And Hammon knows it. That's why she's furious. That's why she's calling it out. Because every missed opportunity moves them further away from the team they were supposed to be, and closer to becoming just another cautionary tale. There's also the mental side of this collapse. You can see it in the way they carry themselves. Heads down, shoulders slouched, long faces on the bench. There's no joy, no spark, no energy. And once that seeps into a team, it becomes incredibly hard to shake. This team used to thrive on confidence, on swagger. They were the ones dictating tempo, forcing teams to match their pace, their energy. Now, they're reacting, playing catch-up, trying to find something, anything, that'll bring them back to life. And what about the locker room? That's where most turnarounds begin. It's where the tough conversations happen, the accountability, the hard truths. But based on how the Aces are performing night after night, you have to wonder if those conversations are even happening. Hammon's post-game interviews suggest they aren't. When she says the team lacks professionalism, she's not just talking about effort on the court. She's talking about preparation, focus, discipline. These are things that start behind closed doors, in film sessions, practice, and meetings. And if that's slipping, the foundation is already cracked. There's still time to fix it, still time to turn things around, but the margin for error is shrinking fast. This league isn't waiting for anyone. The fever, Yes, the same Fever that looked completely lost just a week ago are now building momentum. They're figuring it out. They're stepping up, and that should terrify the Aces. Because while Las Vegas is still trying to find its identity, the rest of the league is catching up. The scariest part of all of this, the Indiana Fever just showed the league that they don't even need Caitlin Clark on the floor to win big. That's right. This wasn't a breakout game because Caitlin went nuclear. This was a total team effort. Young players, role players, even third-round rookies were out there putting in work, completely outplaying a veteran Las Vegas roster. That should be a wake-up call for the Aces. If a rebuilding team like the Fever can find its rhythm and dominate one of the most experienced squads in the league, what happens when every other team starts to smell blood in the water? Because now, the Aces aren't feared. They're not intimidating anyone. Teams don't walk into games against Las Vegas hoping to survive anymore. They walk in expecting to compete, expecting to win. That edge, that mystique, it's gone. And Becky Hammon sees it. That's why her post-game comments were so sharp, so direct. Because this isn't just about winning and losing anymore. It's about pride, identity, standards. And right now, the Aces are falling short in all three. Hammon didn't come to Las Vegas to coach a group of passive, disengaged athletes. She came here to build a championship culture. And while she's won titles, the current state of her team looks like a step backward, a regression, a group that no longer responds to adversity with fight, but with excuses, finger-pointing, and silence. She even called it out in brutal honesty, 3/4 of trash. When a coach says something like that, it's not just a critique, it's a message, a warning, and possibly the beginning of a much larger shakeup. Because when teams underperform this badly, changes happen. Rotations tighten, playing time gets reevaluated, trust erodes, and if things don't turn around fast, front offices take notice, owners take notice. Suddenly, no one's spot is guaranteed. The Aces are 8-9. That's not catastrophic, but it's a far cry from where they expected to be. This was a team supposed to lead the league, not struggle to make the playoffs, and if their current trajectory continues, they might not even get that far. Yes, anything can happen in the playoffs. It's a best of 3 in the first round. All it takes is 2 hot shooting nights and a team can advance. But banking on that kind of fluke isn't a strategy, it's desperation. And the problem with desperate teams, they don't build legacies. They don't inspire fan bases. They don't get remembered. So what's next for Becky Hammon and the Aces? For starters, leadership needs to step up, not just on the coaching staff, but in the locker room. Someone needs to take ownership, not just in front of the cameras, but in practices, in huddles, and in the locker room after games. Accountability needs to be more than just a buzzword. It needs to be real. Because right now, the only person holding the team accountable is Becky herself. And that's not enough. If Las Vegas wants to turn this season around, the players need to look in the mirror. They need to own the effort, own the lapses, own the culture they're creating. Or failing to create. It's not just about chasing another ring. It's about rediscovering the hunger that got them one in the first place. There's still a path forward. Aja Wilson is playing elite basketball. Chelsea Gray still has flashes of brilliance. Jackie Young has the talent to be a game changer. The pieces are there, but they're not going to win games on paper. They have to want it, fight for it, earn it. And Becky Hammon, she's going to keep pushing, keep demanding more, keep holding that standard even if it means making tough calls. Because one thing is clear, she's not going to sit quietly while her team unravels. This loss to the Fever wasn't just a bad night. It was a loud, glaring alarm bell, a signal that something's broken, and that something has to change. Whether or not the Aces hear that alarm and do something about it will define the rest of their season. And if they don't, well, Becky Hammon has made it clear. She's not going to lower the bar. The players will either rise to meet it or be left behind.